call on the ice stands. We gotta go!
Up to the colors. We are set to go.
Let's roll, boys! Come on, let's get going!
We are kicking.
Here we go! Both guys, 5 minutes each for fighting! Watch the blue! Play the puck! We're not doing this!
Hey! After further review, it's the Scouting the Refs podcast.
Yeah, baby!
Here's your hosts, Todd Lewis and Josh Smith.
Okay, gentlemen, play ball. Let's go!
All right, guys, let's drop the puck.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Does this thing work? Yes, it's still on. We are back after a long summer vacation, Josh, and all technical things seem to be lined up. I think we're ready to go. And you know what? Before this season 6 ends, I am determined we're going to get to a clear definition of goaltender interference. I'm setting the bar high.
I think it's unattainably high. I don't know that we'll ever get a clear definition. We've got the NHL rulebook for this year, and I'll tell you, Todd, I don't want to spoil it, but it didn't change the rule for goaltender interference. We're not any closer to understanding it, at least on paper, than we were last season.
Actually, I think on paper, it's pretty clear. It's when it goes into real life that it sort of goes off the rails a little bit. This is the Scouting the Refs podcast, back for year number 6. Make sure you're following us on the social channels. You get Josh on X and Instagram at Scouting the Refs. You got me on X and Instagram at Todd Lewis Sports. Coming up on this week's edition, so long, farewell, welcome to the new guys, new rule reminders, and a special guest. I think it is important that we start with some refreshers because there were some let's call them minor modifications made to the rule book in the NHL. I know goalie interference will still be a thing, but replacement goalies don't come in cold anymore because of injury.
Right. And that was something that was in the rule book. And, you go back to the Roger Nielsen era of guys who manipulated things to try to get away with stuff. And that was one I think they wanted to short circuit him and not have him putting a goalie in and out so that you could buy some time or get an unofficial timeout. So they didn't let it happen. You put a new guy in, he has to go in cold. But the league has recognized, and rightfully so, that a warm-up is probably appropriate, especially if you have a guy leaving for injury. We're not talking a full-blown, skate around and puck shot at him, but, a few pucks here and there, a little bit of stretching, moving around. I feel like the officials have often given some leeway around this, when they know it's not being abused. So nice to see them just put it in the rule book to say that a cold goalie coming in gets a little bit of warm-up. Because now, we've got concussion spotters pulling goalies. So in those situations, I can see a coach being really frustrated because he might not be planning to pull the goalie or you have that injury come up. So good to see these guys get some stretches, hopefully avoid injuries and get ready to play and step in when they weren't expecting to do so.
That's a good point, especially when the goaltender is removed and not of the coaches or choosing. So that's right. That's a good call. Okay, now, because everyone loves the coach's challenge, you can now challenge a little more, and it involves the puck going over the glass, which is another favorite of everyone, isn't it?
Man, if there was ever a chance to put people's favorite things together, puck over glass and coach's challenge, the NHL has done it for you this year. Rule 38.1 lets coaches challenge a puck over glass. But you're not necessarily going to like how it works. You can only challenge the penalty for puck over glass. So if the puck went out and the coach thinks it went out and there's no penalty, can't challenge that one. All you can challenge is when your team has been penalized for puck over glass and you think that the puck deflected off a player, deflected off a stick, deflected off the glass before it went out of play. You can now challenge that penalty and potentially have it waived off if video evidence is conclusive, Todd.
And if it's not conclusive and the penalty stands, well, then it's double jeopardy, right?
Right. And that's the part that I think is going to really result in very few coaches' challenges for puck over glass. Number one, it's hard to get a good video angle. You don't have like the goaltender interference. We can see that. Offside, we can usually see that. Puck over glass, not every camera's in the right place. Not every puck goes out at the same place. It's hard to spot where and when it goes over the glass. So you can't always get a good angle on that. But if you're wrong, you're getting a second penalty. So, unlike an offside, this is a penalty challenge. So you get the 2 minutes for puck over glass and you get the 2 minutes for the failed challenge. So now you're getting not a 5-on-3, but you're getting a 5-on-4 for 4 minutes and the potential for your opponent to score twice there. Not something I necessarily want to put my team in a close game or a tough situation.
So the video coach better be really, really sure on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If we have seen coaches and players not get upset when the net is dislodged and it sort of stops play. There's a bit of a change there if defensemen or goaltenders knock the net off.
Right. You can't do that to buy time. Well, you can do it to cause a face-off, but obviously intentionally knocking the net off has and will continue to be a penalty. Unintentionally knocking it off, it's not. It's obviously up to the official to determine whether it was intentional. And you see guys sliding into the net or a goaltender who bumps it. Well, we're going to take the uncertainty away there. As far as judgment when it comes to the penalty, that's one thing. But you are going to have a certain sort of penalty in that these situations will be treated like an icing. So you think you're trying to get a break. You want to get a breather for the guys on the ice. If the net comes off, you're not allowed to change as a defensive team if it's your fault that the net was knocked off the peg. So those guys who would do that sneakily at the end of the game or in a long shift, you can't bump the net off for a line change. You're going to have to stay out there on the ice.
These next two, I think, are going to get a lot of attention. The first one being a minor penalty. I'm just sitting on the boards waiting to change lines. What's the problem?
It's dangerous. Look, this is literally a player safety issue. And this has nothing to do with player safety, but this is when it comes to player and official safety. We did have an official, I think it was linesman Shandor Alfonso, get cut last season by a player who was sitting on the boards with his skates out. Something that the league has realized they can prevent by making this a penalty. So players can sit on the boards, but their skates have to be on the bench side. If they're sitting on the boards and their skates are in any way exposed, they're going to get a warning. And if it happens again in the game, they're going to get a minor penalty for it. So I think this is one that they'll adapt to quickly, but probably a little leeway early on. Expect maybe in preseason a few more warnings until teams and coaches really get used to not being able to sit with your skates ready to hop on the ice.
Here's the other one. This involves face-offs. After an icing, we see centers get tossed. Well, we have, but that's not going to happen now. And I'm telling you, someone's going to get a penalty and people are going to freak out about it.
Oh, they will. And, this was the rule before that you get tossed. And then if you have another violation, you get a penalty. It looks like the league's just trying to minimize tossing. I think it's an optics thing because fans are always complaining, why is this guy getting thrown out of the circle? Why is this happening? Same rules basically still apply, but instead of tossing him, he's going to get a warning. He'll get to stay in there. And then the next infraction results in a face-off violation penalty. So, it's not a big change, but you won't see guys get tossed as much. You might get a few more penalties, but at least the visual of not having the guy get thrown out all the time. I think fans that don't understand the rule or just see their guy getting tossed out don't really get it. I think they might be happier because their face-off man still gets to stay in there. You just hope there's not a jump or a violation there because then he's headed to the box.
Right. Second time is when the punishment gets inflicted. Okay. As with all new seasons, we welcome new people, and the Department of Player Safety will have a new face involved in decision making, and that is Ryan Getzlaf, former captain of the Anaheim Ducks. And you know what? With the Parros connection to Anaheim, playing there for so many years, it makes sense, I guess, that this would happen.
We've got the Ducks Department of Player Safety underway there.
Bias. I can hear it now.
Hey, you know what? I like having veteran guys in there. A guy like Getzlaf, 17 years. He's a captain. He's never been suspended, at least not in the NHL. He was suspended internationally by the IIHF, but no NHL suspensions under his belt. So he seems to know where the line is. And, you get that perspective in there. We have player safety weighing in with the, officiating standpoint, and having the veteran official standpoint, I think is a good one to have in there. So I'm curious to see. What I'd really like to see is if Getsy's going to get to do any of the videos or the voiceover work, or what we have to expect from him in there. Hopefully, we can feel his presence in some aspect of player safety, whether it's rulings or presentations or whatever it happens to be.
You always knew he was on the ice, so I suspect we'll know he's in the office there. We do say goodbye from the National Hockey League to a number of officials, and let's recognize them. Kevin Pollock, who had an outstanding career of over 1,600 games and a couple of Stanley Cup finals, he has now stepped away from on-ice officiating. Yep,
it was a good run for him. It was cut short unexpectedly. He was planning to retire at the end of last season anyway, suffered that knee injury in Buffalo in February, and that effectively ended his NHL career. So a shame that he didn't get the proper send-off. He didn't get the nice refs goodbye, the handshake lines, those types of things that you typically get for a retiring official. Sad to see that he missed out on that, but he's keeping busy, Todd. He's not letting any, dust or moss grow under his feet there. Pollock jumped right over to the Ontario Hockey Association, where he stepped in as director of officiating. So he's been busy planning for the upcoming season, and he'll have a busy year there. So now going from wearing the stripes to being in charge of the stripes. Good for him.
Justin St. Pierre was another official who has retired, and it also was unplanned, unfortunately.
Yeah, St. Pierre was not on the schedule to retire this past season, had knee surgery, missed all of last year, recovering from it and trying to rehab it, but no official word, but I know he was having some challenges or setbacks along the way, and it just seems that it's too much for him to overcome, had to hang up the skates. So unfortunate to see him go 3 away from 1,200, 1197 regular season games, 8 playoff matches. And you like Pollock, he didn't know his last game was April 13th of 23, Dallas versus St. Louis, but that was his final appearance in the National Hockey League, and wishing him the best. I know he's a guy who's been very involved with young officials from camps and everything else, so I'm sure he'll find a way to stay involved and continue to give back to the game.
And the other is linesman Ryan Galloway, who had a great send-off in Winnipeg, his hometown, with the LA Kings in town last April.
Yep, 1,400 regular season games, some playoff matches, and that nice send-off. I mean, look, one of the most beautiful things, at least when you're watching officials, even for fans of the teams, you see the handshake lines for the retiring guys. They line up after the game and they start shaking hands. And we saw it with Galloway happening even in January, February, when some teams knew they weren't going to see him again. So having those moments and seeing that nice send-off, beautiful moment for him, beautiful career that he's had, and way to end it where it all started. Guys from Winnipeg, and he wraps things up in Winnipeg against the Kings.
Now, that, of course, means that new officials are coming in, and several other on the roster have already been promoted. Cody Beach, Justin Key, Joe Maya, they get promoted. And I'm not sure why, but some of them are changing numbers.
Yeah, so it's fun. If you've watched the numbers, the NHL, AHL guys, the guys that are on part-time contracts, so they'll work most of their games in the AHL and come up for a handful of National Hockey League games, at least the first season, and then the second season a little bit more and things like that. They're typically in the 40s. Steve Kazari won't give up that number 40, but 41 through 49 are your minor league officials that are splitting time between the two leagues. So when you get that promotion, as a ref, you get to jump into the big time and move down to 39 and below. So we've got Cody Beach moving to number 32, and Justin Kia picking up the recently vacated number 36. So those guys will be in new numbers as they are full-time National Hockey League referees. Joe Mahan keeps his 89. No change to the linesmen. They come into the league wearing their numbers. That's usually what they stay with. And one other numerical change, Todd, Pierre Lambert jumping into the former jersey of Marc Joannette. Lambert goes from 37 to number 25 for this upcoming season. So get used to seeing another official wearing that 25 out there. I know from the guys I've talked to, it's always a little bit weird to see somebody else wearing the number you wore for so many years in the National Hockey League. So I'm sure Joannette will have to do a double take when he sees 25 hit the ice this fall.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll all be checking our scorecards and game sheets one more time. And when you return to school or return to training camp, there's always a couple of new faces that come in. This year is no exception. The NHL officiating ranks 2 defensemen turned referees. Alex Lepkowski and Liam Maaskant will be joining the NHL officiating team for the 2024-25 season. These guys have a long history together, Josh.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, Todd. We've looked at guys before, and we try to look at their connections. Where did they play? Were they in junior hockey, minor league hockey? Hey, this guy was teammates with a certain player, something like that. Always fun to look that up. And these guys both played with Aaron Ekblad, Mark Scheifele, guys like that, because they came up together. They both played together in Barrie Colts in the OHL, and then 4 years together at Acadia University. So kind of funny to see 2 guys who played on the blue line on the same team that crossed paths more than once in their minor or college careers to end up both making it to the NHL as officials for the 2024-25 season. Really, good for them for battling through and finding ways to stay competitive as players as they tried to advance, and both going to the NHL Exposure Combine and being offered this opportunity.
And just like NHL teams do, they want a little pre-scout. They want as much information as possible on anyone new coming into the league. Well, we're going to do the same with the new officials coming into the league. So who better to go to than their former coach, Darren Burns, who joins us now. Darren, thanks for this. This is awesome. How cool is it that you've got 2 new refs coming into the NHL and you coached them both?
Yeah, it's very it's fascinating. It's a great story. Couldn't happen to two better people. It's been great for our program and our community. They're beloved guys as alumni, and Liam lives here year round now when he's not officiating, and Lepper's 40 minutes down the road, but they're up all the time, and they're around as alumni, but they're around our current players. It's just fascinating. Like I said, they're well-respected individuals, and for us to have success stories like that, like the refereeing in the greatest sport and the greatest league in the world, and it's tremendous for everybody. It's just it's an energetic, positive story, so it's great to see.
Yeah, it's so cool to think that, you know, the dream is to make it to the National Hockey League, but you're not always thinking that you're going to do it in stripes. I would say you're rarely thinking that you're going to do it in stripes, but, you know, before they got to where they were now, they were players, obviously hoping to make it as far as they could as a player and as defensemen in this case. What were these two guys like on the ice there, Coach?
Well, it's kind of interesting that the referees, because they spent their fair time in the penalty box for sure. They were both physical presence, but they played hard, and they were both very tough. And you know, opponents would tell you that they played against. But I mean, ironically, you know, Lepper was an NHL draft pick, played games in the American Hockey League, the East Coast League, I believe even. You know, he may have played in Spengler Cup, I think, with Rochester. I don't know if that's yeah. I think he did. And, you know, Maaskant in his last year here, it was a year we had a really good team. We were hosting the Nationals, and it was projecting that he was going to go to the American League with Belleville. They were extremely interested in him. So these guys are tremendous hockey players, tremendous leaders, and they have a lot of integrity. So, you know, I think it just looks great. And you know, with what Volcom's doing, bringing them into the National Hockey League, I mean, they fit with exactly what you want in officials. They're fair, they're honest, they're going to work hard, and they're not going to cheat you. So, I mean, that's the type of individuals they are. They're fantastic humans. I mean, I can't talk about it enough. And again, they're straight shooters. Like, these guys are strong-willed guys. They were as players. They were very honest with me as a coach, and we had a lot of great conversations. I mean, we love these two guys here. I mean, they're just, as I said, I mean, they're pillars as alumni, and in our community, they're well respected, and we're lucky to have them. And being close to Acadia, like being here in the off season, it's awesome for our guys.
Well, since you said they were a physical presence, accumulated the PIMs, we'll trust that they know where the line is, and they'll be ready to enforce it when the others cross it.
I'm not saying that.
No, well, I'm just saying. I'm wondering, though, since they were defensive partners and paired together, I wonder if there will be a time when they're paired together in the NHL. And the other part is, being defensemen, you sort of watch the play ahead of you, and I wonder if that almost lends itself to being a better official.
I'm sure it does. I mean, you know, both guys too are very cerebral. If you ever get a chance, like in talking to them, I mean, they're smart guys. They think, and I just don't mean about the game of hockey. And I think that helps you. You know, they have a calm presence. As I said, I joke about it, but you know, as defensemen, they played physical, but they are both cerebral players, and they like to talk about the game. And I think not just, you know, the ability that playing D, they would see a lot of things transpire during the game. I'm sure that does help them, you know, but again, it's the off ice, their persona that way too, and their mentalities, that they are thinkers as people. They don't just talk about, you know, the game of hockey. You can speak to both these guys for hours about, you know, things away from the game too. And I think that's important because it, you know, again, as you know, they're interacting with people in this position. You're interacting with a lot of different people, a lot of different mentalities from a lot of different backgrounds. And, you know, sometimes people are going to be upset, but I think they're excellent voice of reasons. And even though they were energetic, physical guys as players, you know, they're going to have a calm presence. And I'm sure they're going to be nervous when they're doing their exhibition games here now over the next couple of weeks. But as I said, they're honest. And as you guys know, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Those guys, they're going to make mistakes because that game is so fast, but they're going to be honest. And I think coaches and players are going to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's critical, especially when you're trying to get that, you're trying to make your presence felt and get your foot in the door there, to be honest, to be outgoing, to be communicative and explain things. It goes a long way, especially as a new official. So it sounds like they've got the right tools for that. And I probably have to credit how they came up and their education. We're starting to see some hot spots for whatever the case is. Robert Morris University in Pennsylvania, we've got Furman South and Brandon Blandina coming from there. So they're starting to get this officiating reputation. And it looks like with these two guys coming in, maybe there's something going on at Acadia. What do you think there's anything in your program or the way that you coach the team that helps these guys develop what they need to do to be successful to make it to the NHL as officials?
Well, I think that our institution does learn itself to that. We're a very small university, but our players are, integral parts of the community. Both these guys were academic All-Canadians, I believe, which is an 80 average as students in their last year. Like, these guys were tremendous students. They knew their classmates. They were great volunteers in the community. And I think it's more coming to a university here. I mean, it's a lot like playing major junior hockey because you're coming and you're a focal point. I mean, we're lucky we get 1,800 fans a night. So our guys are involved in the community. They work a lot of hockey camps in the summer. They're doing volunteering and they're a big part of campus life. And I think that is important. And, if I can say, I do think that's what sets an institution or a program apart from a lot here in Canada is that, we tell guys, if you don't want to be a big part of this community, this isn't the right place for you. We need guys that are going to embrace community, realize they're going to be role models, and none of us are perfect. But I think that is the one thing that when student athletes come here, and specifically in hockey, they're going to realize, like, when they're going out for supper, they're going, to a restaurant or going to get their groceries. And when they walk in the rink, like the kids, they really look up to these guys. And we consider we're minor hockey here. And we hope that minor hockey thinks they're a part of our varsity program. Our minor hockey team is named after our institution, our organization. And that's a big part because of our players. And so I think that meshing is very important, and it's an education outside the classroom, and we believe that here. And these two guys, the last thing I should say too is, again, it's no secret they come from great families and great grassroots people. I've met both their families, obviously, and do that in part of the recruiting process, but in family weekends that we have here. And they're great people, and these guys were well-grounded kids before they got to Acadia. But I really do think their time in the Annapolis Valley and here on our campus, I think it helped. But you got to have the right people, and they certainly are. So they're just tremendous role models for our institution and our hockey program.
Darren, it sounds like they're smart individuals. They're come from good families, good members of the community. And I'm wondering, for me, just to wrap things up, I'm wondering that what kind of performance are we going to get on the ice? And what I mean is, when you get to the National Hockey League, you're going to be announcing penalties. Are we going to get the Wes Macaulay 5 minutes for fighting, or is it going to be a little more subdued?
No, these two guys are very soft-spoken business guys. I don't see any of that. As I said, they're quiet guys, and hey, they know they got to prove themselves. I mean, they've worked at it, and no, I don't think that's them. They're real kind of just stay behind the scenes guys. Even though they're both extremely confident human beings, they believe in what they're doing. They believe in what type of people they are. They always have, and that's why you love these two guys. But no, I don't think you're going to see that. And even hopefully they're successful and keep going at this and get, their 1,000 games in, just like every referee and player wants. But what you're going to see is you're going to see two great humans that are going to work as hard as they can. If they're involved with something, their passion's going to be in it. They're going to be in it for the right reasons. And as I said, at the end of the day, when you work hard and you're an honest person, you're going to be an attribute to whatever you're embodied in. And these guys they're going to do it. We're proud of them, and they deserve this opportunity. It's happened quick, but couldn't have the two better guys. And I think you got two kids coming down the pipe here that that you're going to really like what they do, and we're excited. And I certainly wish them the best of luck.
Good stuff, man. Way to work.
Get in the box. It's the Scouting the Refs podcast. Read more at scoutingtherefs.com. Follow Scouting the Refs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Email the show at heyref@scoutingtherefs.com.
You're good, Michael.
Subscribe, share,